Well, my philosophy. Do you want to hear my philosophy?
Yeah, I do.
So, what can we say about the pilot episode? Well, this is the first season, and the show doesn't yet deal with the heavy philosophical questions it will tackle later. But my philosophical inquiry also has to do with the development of ideas within Western culture, and with paradigm shifts. Thus, even Season 1 already provides me with a lot to sink my teeth into. Heck, I can talk for hours about this episode alone, the first half of the pilot. But I don't have to. We can take our time and spread the discussions over the entire series. I intend to cover everything, but I can pick and choose what I want to talk about in every video. When we re-watch the pilot, as Buffy fans, it feels a little bit off. The characters are not exactly the characters we are familiar with, the characterization of the vampires is not exactly there, and the emotional weight is a little too light. However, it is also quite easy to forget what we know, get immersed in it as we did the first time around, and enjoy the way the world is being built. We can see how they kept all the good that was already in the pilot, and made just a few tweaks to perfect it. It is not that easy, however, to do what I intend to do, which is to do the same for the entire period, try to get you to forget what has happened since, and learn to see the show through 90s eyes, not through our 2020s vision. By performing this reconstruction, however, we might better understand the problems that period was dealing with, and how it led to the world we have today. So, let's go back to the 1990s. We're after the end of the Cold War, and the world is enjoying Pax Americana. Back in the years of World War II, President Roosevelt said that we are fighting today for security, for progress, and for peace, not only for ourselves but for all men, not only for one generation but for all generations. We are fighting to cleanse the world of ancient evils, ancient ills. And it looks like this project America took upon itself has succeeded. History, it seems, has decided that liberal democracy is the best type of human society, and all societies around the globe are on the way to realize this and adopt it. Peace processes have opened, all conflicts are being resolved, the economy is globalized, and the global community is working together on mutual projects to improve our world. The common feeling is that we are living in a time of peace, prosperity, and affluence, and can now focus on dealing with the problems of daily life. Movies like Clueless and TV shows like Beverly Hills 90210 turn middle-class, affluent Californian kids into the heroes of the time, dealing with those daily problems while living their laissez-faire California life. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is in this vein, but, right from the opening scene, we are warned that all our preconceptions are about to get subverted.
I don't want to go up there.
Oh, you can't wait, huh?
We're just gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, you can count on it.
What was that?
It was what?
I heard a noise.
It's nothing.
Maybe it's something.
Well, maybe it's something.
It's not funny.
Hello? There's nobody here.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay.
We are thrown into it right away, with a cold opening that warns us to always expect the unexpected. We are led to believe that the boy is the predator, but he is actually the prey. We are also warned that this show is going to challenge our perception of the power balance between girls and boys. But it takes some time until we get there. First, we get to meet Buffy. Buffy is sweet 16, good-natured, stylish, and cute as a button. We learn that she got kicked out of her old school in Los Angeles, and we realize that it was for causing destruction while fighting vampires. She can't use that as an excuse, though, so she's branded a delinquent. She wants to start a new life in the lovely little town of Sunnydale, California, away from all the vampires. We join her on her first day in Sunnydale High, and right away we find that Buffy is a girl trapped between different worlds, in more ways than one. First, there's the world of the teenagers, which is divided into the popular crowd and the outcast crowd. Buffy is welcomed by Cordelia, the beautiful, rich, stylish queen bee of the class, and we are first introduced to Cordy's lovable side. She befriends Buffy, verifies that she is stylish and cool, offers to help her adjust, and invites her into the popular crowd. Buffy is happy to be accepted so quickly, but then she is exposed to Cordelia's mean side, bullying a mousy girl named Willow, whom she defines as a loser. Buffy is visibly discomforted by it, and later actually tries to befriend Willow, after hearing she is the brainiest student in class and can help her catch up on her studies. She thus finds herself among members of the outcast crowd, the nerdy, insecure Willow, the dorky, bumbling Xander, and the slightly cooler Jessie. Willow then asks the obvious question.
But aren't you hanging out with Cordelia?
I can't do both.
Not legally.
Buffy, we learn, doesn't want to be bound by the rules, and believes she can be part of both worlds. We are rooting for her to succeed, but we fast learn that the odds are against her, because at the same time she is also caught between two different worlds. On the one hand there's the 90s youth culture represented by her high school mates, and on the other hand there's...
Can I help you?
I was looking for some, well, books. I'm new.
Miss Summers?
Good call. Guess I'm the only new kid, huh?
I'm Mr. Giles. The librarian. I was told you were coming.
Great. So, I'm gonna need perspectives on 20th
I
century...
know what you're after.
Buffy wants nothing to do with this world, but reality, in the form of a vampire victim found on school grounds, forces her to return to the library and give Mr. Giles the opportunity to tell us what world we are entering.
What do you know about this town?
It's 2 hours in the freeway from Neiman Marcus.
Dig a bit in the history of this place and you'll find a steady stream of fairly odd occurrences. I believe this whole area is a center of mystical energy. Things gravitate towards it that you might not find elsewhere.
Like vampires.
Like zombies, werewolves, incubi, succubi. Everything you've ever dreaded was under your bed but told yourself couldn't be by the light of day. They're all real.
This was the second half of the 90s. Since it was a peaceful time, and it seemed that there are no real threats anymore, pop culture had to invent enemies for its heroes. And, to keep it rooted in current reality, one of the ploys was to imagine that there is a secret world that exists below the surface of everyday life, known only to the few heroes who are fighting to keep it from disturbing the peace of the known world. Iconic late 90s movies like Men in Black and The Matrix, and the Harry Potter book series that was about to take the world by storm, all had this premise. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, by its very name, hints at this paradoxical juxtaposition of 90s reality with such mythical enemies.
The new kid? She seems kind of weird to me. What kind of name is Buffy? Hey, Aphrodisia. Oh, hey!
Okay, the joke here is that the girl called Aphrodisia is making fun of someone else's name. But really, what kind of name is Buffy? Nowadays, when you hear Buffy, you think icon. But before the show, the name Buffy was pretty much the silliest name you could think of. Way sillier than Aphrodisia. The idea that someone called Buffy would be a vampire slayer was hilarious, and actually kept some people away from the show. Buffy is a nickname for a little girl named Beth, but our Buffy isn't called Beth. Her given name is Buffy. What possessed her parents, specifically her mother as we learn years later, to give her this name? Well, if you watch 90s films and TV shows, you see many young kids named after rock stars, so it is possible that she was named after Buffy St. Marie. Buffy, in her case, was short for Beverly. But, knowing Joyce, the name probably came from the show Family Affair, that ran in the years 1966 to 1971, a popular sitcom about the Davis family, and the young blonde girl is called Beth, aka Buffy. Anyway, this tells us something about this period. Buffy and her teenage friends don't have biblical names. In the liberal society that prevailed after the 1960s, many parents prefer to draw names from pop culture rather than the Bible. The only one who has a biblical name is Jesse, which bodes ill for his character and hints that he might not be in our camp for long. Because when we meet the other camp, the most dominant vampire in it is Luke, a very biblical name, with a very biblical game.
The third day of the newest light will come the harvest, and the blood of men will flow as wine, when the Master will walk among them once more. The earth will belong to the old ones, and hell itself will come to town.
In contrast to a sunny, bubbly, contemporary reality, there's the reality of those who call themselves the Old Ones, where pestilent biblical imagery is still relevant. Earlier, we saw our heroes learn in class about the Black Death, but they think of it as something of the past, as the 90s believed all plagues to be. Since she has this mindset, Buffy wants nothing to do with that other world, but it forces itself on her.
Oh, why can't you people just leave me alone?
Because you are the Slayer. Into each generation, a Slayer is born. One girl in all the world, a chosen one born with the
Strength and skill to hunt the vampires, to stop the spread of their evil blah blah blah. I've heard it, okay?
Because she is the Chosen One. The main influence on Chosen One stories is of course the Bible, in which God would choose someone to be his emissary on earth. Noah, Abraham, and Moses were all approached directly by God and given a mission. Later on, God would not do it directly, but give signs that marked someone as the Chosen One. They were usually unlikely candidates, people who came from lowly origins and were not remarkable, but God would demonstrate his power by turning them into leaders. Chosen One stories became very popular in the late 90s, as someone had to be chosen to fight against the unseen evil. Harry Potter, Anakin Skywalker, Neo, and Frodo Baggins were all just living their lives, when suddenly they were approached by an older man who informed them that they are special, a key figure in a war they didn't even know existed. In their story, too, the convention was kept that they are unlikely heroes, but none came close to the unlikely idea that the Chosen One would be a frivolous blonde cheerleader named Buffy. This was one of the most genius things about the premise of the show, and why so few believed that such a ridiculous premise could work. Giles, on the other hand, doesn't think it's ridiculous. His understanding of the situation comes from his deep knowledge of the literature, and he quotes from it to try to bring the young girl to his way of thinking. Buffy's answer to that is also a quote.
I really don't understand this attitude. You've accepted your duty. You've slain vampires before.
Yeah, and I've both been there and done that, and I'm moving on.
Which comes from...
Done that, did that, been there, tried that. Done it. Did it. Done it. Doing it tomorrow. Whoa! Never did it.
New Pepsi Max. Maximum cola taste and no sugar.
Did it. Done it. Liked it. Loved it.
This was the spirit of 20th century pop culture, and what I call the pop age, which reached its highest point of self-awareness in the 90s. Live in the now, and make the most out of it. Once you've made the most out of something, move on to the next thrilling thing. Give your kids biblical names, like people have done for millennia. Been there, done that. Read books. Did that, tried that. I'm getting my ideas from commercials now. Slay vampires. Done it, did it. Let some other girl do it tomorrow. Giles realizes that this strong-headed girl doesn't want to give up on that mentality, so he tries another angle.
It's getting worse.
What's getting worse?
The influx of the undead, the supernatural occurrences, it's been building for years. There's a reason why you're here and a reason why it's now.
Because now is the time my mom moved here.
Something is coming. Something is gonna happen here. Soon.
Gee, can you bake that up for me?
Signs, as far as I can tell, point to a crucial mystical upheaval very soon. Days, possibly less.
And here we have yet another late 90s trope. Yes, we were told in many pop culture stories. It is true that we are living in peaceful times, and it seems that the ancient evils FDR spoke of have indeed been cleansed. But, under the rosy surface, an ancient evil has reawakened and is about to threaten our good life. It wasn't always portrayed as something that's happening now. Sometimes the peaceful reality was in another time and place, but always there was that old enemy awakening. The TV show Babylon 5, the Star Wars prequels, the Harry Potter books, the cinematic adaptation of Lord of the Rings, the popular fantasy literature series Song of Ice and Fire that would become central to the pop culture of the 2010s, all had this trope. But this was all just fantasy. It seemed unimaginable that something like this can actually happen in reality.
Oh, come on. This is Sunnydale. How bad and evil can there be here?
The sleeper will wake. The sleeper will wake. The sleeper will wake.
We, the audience, already know that something is awakening right under the high school, meaning, metaphorically, below the carefree surface of our heroes' lives, although we don't know what it is yet. Giles, however, is unable to get Buffy to take it seriously. To be attracted again into the world of vampires, our girl Buffy needs something, well, a bit more attractive.
Is there a problem, ma'am?
Yeah, there's a problem. Why are you following me?
I know what you're thinking. Don't worry. I don't bite.
In a darkened alley, she runs into a mysterious stranger, an embodiment of the tall, dark and handsome of romance novels. He, too, has a warning for her.
You're standing at the mouth of hell. And it's about to open. Don't turn your back on this.
The mouth of hell is, naturally, another relic of the old world. It appears quite a lot in medieval art as something that might open up and swallow all you sinners. Buffy doesn't take that seriously either, but she can't resist wearing the present this handsome stranger gave her, a necklace with a cross, thus taking a step into the old, biblical world. It's not just about attraction, of course. With two people now warning her, she starts to realize she has to take it more seriously. Next, Giles comes to her world to try to impress the urgency of the situation upon her, and Buffy tries to assure him that she hasn't completely given up on her duty.
I didn't say I'd never slay another vampire. It's not like I have all these fluffy bunny feelings for them. I'm just not gonna get way extracurricular with it. You know, if I see one, sure.
Will you be ready?
Buffy, we realize, is still living in the world of the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The schlocky 1992 offering in which Hollywood took Joss Whedon's vision and did with it what it often does, turned it into a fluffy, insignificant comedy. The campy vampires, campires, are not some ancient evil that is plotting to rise and take over again, but part of the liberal order, just a bunch of scoundrels messing up Buffy's social life. This is the level of deepness that Hollywood, until then, was prepared to go to in teen horror flicks. The original pilot for the show is also just that, Buffy fighting a bunch of campires. But once he got the green light, Whedon set about to thicken and deepen the plot. The show seemingly picks up where the film left off, but many things have been changed. Some things are kept, though, and one of them is that Buffy perceives the vampires in the way they appear to her in LA, nothing but creatures of the night that are part of the dangers of everyday life. Giles tries to use this as a way to get to her.
There's so much you don't know about them, about your own powers. A vampire appears to be completely normal until the feed is upon them. Only then do they reveal their true demonic visage.
You're like a textbook with arms. I know this.
The point is, a slayer should be able to see them anyway. Without looking, without thinking. Can you tell me if there's a vampire in this building?
Maybe.
You should know. Even through this mass and this din, you should be able to sense them. Well, try. Reach out with your mind. You have to hone your senses, focus until the energy washes over you, till you feel every particle of it.
There's one.
Where?
Right there, talking to that girl.
You don't know.
Oh, please. Look at his jacket. He's got the sleeves rolled up. And the shirt? Deal with that outfit for a moment.
It's dated.
It's carbon dated. Trust me, only someone living underground for 10 years would think that was still the look.
But you didn't hone.
This is the moment I got hooked on Buffy, both the girl and the show. First of all, it's the first really funny moment, an introduction to the humor of the show, that I love. But also, I loved how Buffy insists that her pop culture world has value as well, more value than the old world. She's going to recognize the vampires in her way, not the old supernatural ways. It is also notable that Giles, even though he is frustrated again, does not think that she is just a dumb teenager, but shows respect for her sensibilities. Anyway, he doesn't have to worry any longer, because reality comes crashing down on Buffy when she realizes the vampire she just spotted is about to make a meal out of Willow. Finally, she springs into action.
Cordelia! God! What is your childhood trauma? Have you guys seen Willow? Did she come by here?
Why? Do you need to attack her with the stick? Jeez. Excuse me. I have to call everyone I have ever met right now.
I showed this scene for two reasons. First, this is the moment when Buffy's chances of being a popular girl evaporate, as choosing to engage with the supernatural world dooms her to forever be among the outcasts. Her attempt to be part of both the popular and the outcast worlds fails, and from here on, the question will become if she can be part of both the teenager world and the supernatural world. The other reason is that this scene contains something that we will not see again on the show for a long time. A cell phone. Cell phones were still considered a luxury in the late 90s, especially for kids, but you would expect a town like Sunnydale, where walking alone at night is so dangerous, to have every parent get one for their kid. Yet, after the pilot, the show acts like they don't exist, until they finally show up in the final season. The creators evidently made the conscious decision to ignore their existence, probably to make the horror scarier. In other words, in its attempt to maintain the tension between the old world of the vampires and the new world of the 90s, the show resists becoming part of the even newer world that was emerging. What do I mean by newer world? Well, as a historian and critic of pop culture, I claim that since 1915 we are in what I call the pop age. We shall define it as we go along, but for now I'll just mention that I divide the pop age into three periods. The period we are in now, which began in 1995, is what I call the cyber period. The period that came before that, lasting from 1955 to 2005, is what I call the rock and roll period. The years 1995 to 2005 were the transition phase, which means that the series we are about to analyze takes place entirely inside that phase. And of all the great works of art made then, no other work, to my mind, reflects this transition phase better. The show begins its run entirely rooted in the rock and roll period, and with every season we see a shift towards the mindset, the mediums, and the concerns of the cyber period. Following and understanding this transition is one of the main missions of this project. When we look at the first episode, Welcome to the Hellmouth, we find ourselves back in the rock and roll period. The internet isn't even mentioned here, and even later it will rarely be shown as a place that youngsters hang in. They don't hang in, they hang out. Where do they hang out? At the Bronze, the local rock club. In the rock and roll period, popular music was the medium that represented the spirit of the time. It was the medium through which people, mainly youngsters, associated with each other, found expression to their innermost feelings, explored their own soul, discovered their identities, got their information about and understanding of the world around them, and manifested their style. In this show, The bronze will represent all that, and in this first episode it is already shown as the center of our heroes' lives, the place they go to associate and have a good time. The band that is playing, in typical 90s grunge rock style, is Sprung Monkey, and it has the honor of being the first of about 20 real rock acts that will perform at the Bronze during the show's run. Being an unknown show, all they could get for this pilot episode is this unknown band, although Sprung Monkey will go on from there to have some success. It already displays the show's insistence to focus on contemporary rock acts, not the old rock legends, in both its soundtrack music and the choice of bands that appear at the Bronze. Thus, it documents the tail end of the rock and roll period. The 90s were the time when the rock and roll period achieved self-awareness, something that always happens to a period just before it ends, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer displays this self-awareness. Through our analysis of it, we shall try to understand that period. This is particularly important because in the cyber period, music no longer matters, and those who were born into this period thus lack the inner understanding of what it was all about. Youngsters today, if you tell them kiss rocks, they might actually think that you are telling them to kiss rocks. But while the rock and roll period is over, what happened in it still very much shapes our time and influences the way we think. If you are one of those born after it, I hope this series will help you better understand the world you are in today. One of the things which almost every Buffy episode has is what I call a rock and roll moment. This is a moment that makes us feel the awesomeness of the rock and roll spirit, or makes a commentary on it, or just references classic records. In this episode, the rock and roll moment will not be provided by the Bronze, but actually by the vampire world, when the sleeper finally wakes. The Master is introduced, and he comes in with a great rock star entrance. Not only that, but he is wearing a leather jacket. Okay, this is not exactly the Marlon Brando leather jacket, which rockers turned into a rock and roll staple, but it is close enough. This image of Nosferatu decked in leather assures us that in this show, even the demons will have enough style to look cool in the rock and roll period, and turn the show into one of the last symbols of that period. The other medium that was central to the rock and roll period, along with pop music, was of course television. But while music no longer matters in the cyber period, television is still an important medium. However, it survived only because it transformed, and Buffy is the girl who stands with one stylish boot in each of these periods, the one who embodies the transformation. That the show would succeed on the terms of all TV was ensured at the end of this episode, as Buffy comes into the Graveyard Mausoleum, dressed to kill on the dance floor, but showing that she can also kill vampires, while trash-talking them into dust. All TV was mainly about creating cultural icons, characters that you would tune in to see every week on your TV screen, even though they did pretty much the same thing every time. This badass moment ensured, right away, that Buffy would be such an icon. But while they were giving us this icon, the show was already changing the rules of television, laying the ground for the shows that came since. Stay tuned, and we'll explore every detail of how they did it.